I want to say how delighted I am to be here. Wow, that light is bright. And I'm not just fake saying that. I truly am. Bruce asked me to come here along with the rest of these great speakers today to talk about the importance of authenticity. I played with that idea and then made a slight shift in my topic decision. So I know that it was probably unlikely that many of you in the room were expecting to get a valuable presentation on authenticity from the woman in advertising, so it's probably unlikely that I'm disappointing any of you, and hopefully Bruce will feel the same. But what I can tell you about authenticity is that after 20 years of living here in the Disneyland of ski resorts and of having had many ski areas and DMOs on our company client roster, I've done more than my fair share, I would say, of thinking about authenticity. And what I can tell you is that today's hot topic of authenticity is completely real. Today's sophisticated travel consumer is clamoring for authenticity. We know that. All of today's tourism providers are really focused on delivering it to their consumers. And I spend fully half my time thinking about what our customers, our clients and their customers need, and there is no question that authenticity is occupying our thoughts today. But this quote that I have up here, this notion of the future, is really what I want to spend the next 8 or 9 minutes talking to you about, and that's really about looking to the future and looking at what happens after authenticity. Before we get there, I think we just need to get on the same page with this new proposal of mine, is that beyond death and taxes, there is one for sure thing in the world today, and that's clearly progress. And I know that that isn't much of a stretch. But progress is something that we do, the human race. It's evolution. We came out of the caves, we moved to an agrarian society, we moved from that through the industrial economy, we moved past that to the service economy, we went through the knowledge economy, and now we're fairly squarely planted inside what is become known as the experience economy. Now, each of those economic ages or phases that I've discussed, each one of them have had a consumer sensibility that defines them. It might be called a driver, a consumer driver, or maybe a currency. And it's quite widely acknowledged that in the experience economy, the currency is authenticity. And clearly that's why we're here today. Now, you can probably also argue that those of us who are in the tourism industry have really been on the front lines of seeing the rise in that currency. As we've seen the sort of global growth of tourism to really every corner of the earth, we've seen this corresponding rise in consumer sentiment that is a bit of a been there, done that. And I don't know if any of you are starting to see or sense that in your consumers. But this notion that as we explore and we travel, we are looking, as consumers, we are looking for more and more and more authenticity in what we're experiencing. And this is fine until there's nothing left to buy with that authenticity currency. Until we cannot be more authentic. We cannot create any more authentic experiences for our consumers. And that's when progress starts to take hold again, and there's a change. And a new economy starts to emerge. And that is really what's keeping me up at night. And that's what I'd like to talk about is, what about tomorrow? What happens when we become so hyper-real, so uber genuine, that our consumers actually tire of the notion of authenticity? Now, I know there's probably some of you here that are thinking, oh, evolution, that takes time. Progress, it's coming. I've got time to work this authenticity thing for a little bit longer. And I can probably give that to you, except what I can say is I think the vast majority of you in here probably have this notion of authenticity already figured it out, or you're figuring it out pretty quick. You're tapping into your cultural traditions. You're identifying cultural icons and ambassadors. You're working with local artisans. You're introducing your local business. You're resurrecting your history, your natural history. I think there's a lot of people that are celebrating local. You're creating 100-mile menus in your restaurants. You're doing your ski with a local programs on the hill. You're having story time with Jed down at the museum. There's probably still some of you in here that are trying to figure out how to make mountain coasters and zip lines more authentic. My point is, I think we've got this thing dialed. I think we're there. And the problem with staying there is that we spent about 100 years focusing on the industrial economy. We spent about 50 after that on the service economy, and then the information economy took hold. And the internet injected a dose of steroids into our economic evolutionary process. And so now what we're finding is that economic trends are rising and falling at just mere fractions of the time that it took a century ago for us to evolve. And so it's begging the question, not how should we be focused today on creating more authentic experiences or marketing our experiences in more authentic ways, but I think the question really is what's next. And that's a big question. Could it be that it is going to be a tourism experience that is completely free of tourist trappings, where our guests roam our destinations with their smartphones and Yelp and Airbnb to guide them? Or could it be on the other end of the spectrum, potentially, where it's a completely manufactured experience that can't be found anywhere in the authentic world? It is embraced completely for its utter uniqueness. It's hard to say, but I've got 5 trends here today that I thought I'd throw up and we could have a chat about that may give us some hints. I think these trends might emerge as the seeds to our next economy, and if they don't, I think they're going to be at the very least a part of our tourism lexicon in the next very few short years. The first one is sharing, and we've heard all about it, the sharing economy. It's here. There's no debating this trend. It emerged as a backlash to overconsumption and this quest in our society for sustainability. The sharing economy merged with the experience economy, coupled and had a love child. Actually, they've had several love children, and they have names like Uber and Airbnb and hundreds of others, businesses that are participating in this economy. And I think the question that I wanted to ask all of you is, as businesses in the tourism industry, are we ready to embrace that rather than defending against it? Are we ready to figure out ways to leverage that and make that a part of our business and a successful piece of the puzzle to growing our destinations? This is a really interesting emerging trend. It was the Apple Watch was launched this last weekend, where many of us wandering around with our Fitbits and whatnot. This notion of self-enhancement and tracking is moving from just tracking steps and calories and vertical, and it's going to start tracking a whole lot more. We're going to start interacting with our authentic experiences in ways that are more focused on ourselves than on the environment. And so we have to ask ourselves as destinations, are we ready to shift the focus that we're currently putting on our own authentic experiences to those attentions of making our customers promoting their own authentic selves? Areas of education, health, skills and knowledge development, creativity, spirituality. These are all going to come into play as our customers focus on their own self-enhancement and less on your authentic experiences. Caring. Maybe a caring economy is going to emerge. We're seeing little snippets of this too, and there were some other discussions about it. But the internet and tourism and the experience economy has opened up not just the best of the world for us to travel through, but it's also really showcased the worst, and you really can't travel these days without witnessing the inhumanity in just about every destination. We've all got it. So the question arises when consumers evolve beyond their egocentricity or beyond our authentic experiences. Will we see an age of purposeful consumption that is designed potentially to give more back to the people in the destinations that we are visiting than take from? And that's a really interesting concept that I think those destinations that are ready to take a look at that may be ahead of the game. Cultural reinvention, this is my favorite one, I think. I travel a fair bit like all of you, and the world is getting increasingly small, we know this. But as authentic or traditional cultures come under pressure from globalization, what we're seeing is this homogenization of the tourism product. And when the Champs-Élysées and Times Square and Main Street down each of your destinations all look and feel the same, consumers will begin to reject this, if they're not already. They are going to be looking and drawn to those destinations that are looking for really modern and contemporary, fresh ways that they're reinventing themselves and their cultures. I think this, creating something that is unfamiliar to a guest, reinvention will become a key piece of our future. And this one, Barrett's talked about it, a few people have talked about this notion of candidness in authenticity, but I think candid consumption may be that post-authentic trend that we are heading towards. When authenticity is maxed, when there is no more authentic experience that we can give up and offer and entertain our guests with, what's left? And maybe it is this: complete candidness, complete transparency, a lack of tourism construct completely. And I wonder if the resorts that are focusing now, or the destinations that are focusing now on pulling down the main stage, the front stage where the performance goes on, and instead thinking about opening up the back door to their destinations experiences, perhaps those will be the ones that really succeed with a behind-the-scenes look coming into the future. And so those are 5 trends, 5 things that I'm starting to see emerge. And I'm going to leave you to ponder those. I'm sure ideas are popping into your heads as I'm standing up here talking. So I'll leave you with this. As consumers and as society, we're driven to evolve. Tourism must keep up. We must progress with it. The question will be, will we lag behind? Or will we run at the pace of change? If we lag behind, we find ourselves focusing on trends that are tipping and figuring out how to scrape up the last little bits of goodness that we can get out of that trend. And if we look forward, I think we'll find the keys to success. Thanks very much for having me.